computer. Welcome to Healing from Grief and Loss, where top experts are going to be helping you on your journey to find strength, comfort, and joy again. I can't hardly talk today because I'm so excited. I'm Andrea, your host, and on the show today, we have the amazing, beautiful Laura Jack, and I can't contain myself because I'm just so excited. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I can't wait for you to share with the audience. So welcome, Laura. I'm so excited you're here with us today.
Thank you, Andrea, for having me. I love witnessing your joy in what you're doing and being part of your journey too. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you again. So Laura she's got quite a list of things that she's done and that she is doing and that she will be doing. Laura is a compassionate communication and leadership coach. She's also a trainer for the Grief Recovery Institute, and she is an international best-selling author and speaker and founder of the Compassion Code Academy. So exciting. So I would love it if you shared your story with us and sort of where this all began for you.
Yes. So my story is long, so I'll try to keep it to a couple minutes so that just to keep it concise. So my journey began, when I was born. I'm just kidding. No, just kidding. But in some ways, I guess it did because I was going about life and I was a very lover of life kind of person. One of my friends used to quote me saying, "Love life" by Laura, and that was my thing. I just loved life. I loved being alive. I loved being human. I loved connection to people. And when I I think around my 25th year of life, my mom was killed. She was walking across the street and she was run over by a car. And I feel like it felt at that time that my whole life didn't make any sense anymore because my mom was my best friend. She was my confidant. She was my biggest cheerleader, but she also was the person who kind of brought me back down to earth when I was getting too, ethereal. And so her death and the suddenness of her death just rocked my world and what felt like pulled my roots out of the ground. So I feel like, at 25 years old, you're kind of figuring out your life. You think you know yourself. It's a typical time for a quarter life crisis anyway, but my mom's death in that time of kind of confusion of moving from child to adult really, really just pulled my roots out of the ground. And, I used to be a very silver linings person. Like I could find the good in all things. And I really tried doing that with my mom's death. I was like, well, at least she was doing something she loved when she died. She was walking across, she was walking, exercising. At least, she and my dad were in a really good place, or at least she and my brother. I came up with all the reasons why it was okay that she died. And what that didn't do was acknowledge the pain and heartache that I was truly experiencing, which was in, and that I had a lot of reconfiguration to do. And so over the last many, many years now, that's what I've been doing is reconfiguring my life after losing my mom. Losing your mom is like joining a club that you never knew existed. You become part of the Kids Without Moms Club, and there's been some comfort in finding others who have also lost a mom or a father, you know, a parent or some other caregiver who raised them. And essentially, though, it was the catalyst to all those accolades and all those, you know, things that Andrea mentioned about describing who I am. I wouldn't be any of those things had I not gone through the devastating loss of losing my mom. And so I think that hopefully answers the, you know, part of the story of who she was, and what that meant for me. You know, I could talk to you for hours about it, but that hopefully gives the audience a little bit of an idea of what I've been through as one of my many losses that I've experienced.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that. It would have, I know it would have been a very painful time in your life, especially at that age too. So did you have any sort of support system at that age, at that time?
You know, my parents were and are, my dad continues to be huge contributors to the community where I grew up. And so we actually had a really amazing support system in some ways. My mom's funeral, there were over 1,000 people that came. It was a huge and devastating loss to our community, like our immediate family, our extended family, but also the community where I grew up. They actually ended up naming a school after my mom after she was killed, and, and which is so amazing. You know, you have like my husband went to like Alexander Graham Bell Elementary, like my mom, like there's a Jan Schiff Elementary, like it's the coolest thing. And so, and that happened pretty quickly after she died because she was such a huge volunteer and advocate for young people. Like, you know, so I grew up in like a Jewish kind of faith community, and like, well, I grew up in a very Christian community because I'm from Texas, but our, like, the Jewish faith tradition is that you sit Shiva, which is like you sit together for, I think it's, I don't even know, I'm so embarrassed, I don't even remember, but you sit together for days and days after the death of somebody, a loved one, right? You can tell I'm not a very religious person, but that tradition is very meaningful in the sense that we had so many people at our house for days and weeks after she died. Like there were nights after she died where so many of my friends flew in and came to be there to support me. And like there was a time where we were sitting around laughing about memories and I didn't even remember why we were all together. And then all of a sudden it just hit me like, oh my gosh, my mom is gone. Like, cause we're in my house, my childhood home, and I'm with my best friends and all these people who love our family. And I'm like having the best time. And then that shock again, like that wave of holy hell, like this is why we're all together, just washes over you, and then you start crying again and you're like, oh. And I think that, you know, I feel so lucky because my husband now, who was my boyfriend of only 9 months at the time, he really stepped up. He really wanted to help me and support me, and he's really good at it. Um, he didn't know what he was doing, but he was open to being coached about it. So even though I had never been through anything like that before, you know, when he'd be like, "Don't cry," and I'd be like, "You know, I really need to cry. Like, I'm really sad and I need to cry." And he'd be like, "Okay, well, what should I do?" I'm like, "You just hold me until I tell you to stop." And so even though I don't know that most people knew what to do, I feel like I was able to ask for what I needed from the people in my life. And my dad and my brother, we all came together. My mom's friends, like different people had my dad over for dinner because I was still living in Panama at the time. Different family friends had my dad over for dinner every night for a year.
Oh,
It was just remarkable because he didn't know how to feed himself at that time. And, you know, it was just, and he didn't want to be alone in our house. And so my brother and I both lived far away. And so it was just so nice to know that he was being supported.
Mhm. Oh, that's wonderful, that you did have that support. Sounds like she was such a big part of the community. So just community and friends and your family. That's wonderful. So
Yeah.
I do have
Thank
to
you.
ask a question that I'm definitely curious about, and I just have a feeling a viewer may be curious about. How are you to this day? How are you with Mother's Day?
You know, so since my mom's death, I've become a mother myself. So Mother's Day, you know, Mother's Day itself, I just recognize the deep complexity of it more than I ever did when I was younger. So both by losing my mother, becoming a mother, not having my mother as a grandmother, like there's so much intricacy and like complexity and richness to this one day. Um, and I think I do a pretty good job of honoring how much I miss her, acknowledging my own motherhood, acknowledging how sad I am that my mom's not here to witness my motherhood. Just the and then also just honoring all the women out there who wanted to be mothers and couldn't, who were mothers and lost children, who like it's just, there's such a spectrum, right? So I think that what I appreciate now about Mother's Day is just being a voice of acknowledgement for other moms and other women who've lost their moms, and also what it means on so many different levels to women out there who and men too, because some men have lost mothers or who didn't have mothers. I mean, it's the whole bag, right? Like,
Yes,
and so just honoring, but a day of complex feelings.
right.
And so that's, I think for me, that's what Mother's Day is now, is just an opportunity for me to be a spokesperson and an acknowledger of all the ways in which this isn't just a happy Mother's Day, and just being an educator in that way.
Right. It is a matter of honoring, the memory of your mom and honoring yourself, and it's beautiful that, you are uh, honoring all the other moms out there and mothers lost, and it is a mixed bag for sure. It's a whole network that intertwines. You're right. So what could you say? What are
Yeah.
a couple of things you could say to our viewers about how you started to find joy again after you did lose your mom? What were some of the things that just brought a bit of peace back and a bit of comfort and a bit of a smile to your face?
So there was a good portion of time where I didn't have a smile on my face, and that I didn't feel like myself, and that I didn't know if I'd ever feel like myself again. Um, but at some point, I think what happened was I decided that I was going to listen to my heart, and that I wasn't going to let anybody else's opinion influence me. And I just felt like my mom's death gave me permission to do whatever the F I wanted to do. And that meant that I decided that after going to a 4-year university and getting a great education, that I was going to go to massage school. And that was, hard for my dad maybe in the beginning to understand. He came around. But for me to just say, you know what? When I got married a few years later, people had expectations of what they thought I should do. And I was like, you know what? My mom's not here, so I get to do whatever I want. So in many ways, how I ended up finding joy again was by letting my own heart and my own intuition be my compass, because I the person whose opinion and thoughts mattered most to me up until that point wasn't there. So it gave me this kind of like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I want, and whatever helps bring me joy, I'm going to follow that. Even if other people think it's weird or they don't understand, I'm going to be an advocate for myself. And so, you know, I ended up going to massage school, which was a huge healing for me. I learned how to receive for the first time in my life. I'd always known how to give. I never knew how to receive. And in massage school, funny enough, you're learning how to give, but you also are required to receive a certain number of hours of massage every quarter. And so I learned the value of receiving and saying thank you. I learned the value of trying anything as long as it was like legal and, wasn't harmful to my being. I I tried all sorts of, I like to call them my woo woo ways. I was like, I will try it. Even if it's weird, even if I don't understand it, I'm gonna let my woo shine through. And I just was like, I'll try tinctures, I'll try massage, I'll try acupuncture, I'll do yoga, I'll go do a meditation, I'll like whatever it was, which, growing up in Texas, those were all pretty foreign things to me. So living in Seattle, which is where my husband is from, I was able to kind of embrace this other alternative scene of healing. And man, I'm so great to rediscover and discover in some ways for the first time who I really was and what I wanted and to be moving forward, and who I wanted to be moving forward. And so, my advice, I guess, is to listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, and don't let others' judgment be of any concern to you, because you're the only one who, that's it. And so try anything that could potentially help you, even if it seems a little strange. If, obviously do things that are healthy and safe for you, and try things that maybe are outside of your typical comfort zone. Because if whatever you've been doing hasn't helped you heal or feel joy, then try something different, because doing the same things over and over again is certainly not going to help. Right. So for me, that is really what led me on the path that I'm on, is by being brave, by being bold, and by letting go of other people's judgment and my own judgments of myself, so that I could be free to choose the life that I wanted to have and the life that I've chosen to have now, which I love my life now.
I love
I
that.
hope that's helpful.
It is very helpful. I love that. I love your story. I love your wild side, your woo-woo side, and all that. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, before we sign off, is there anything else that you want to share, or you feel you want to leave with the audience today?
Sure. So in all these years, part of why I wrote the Compassion Code, which you mentioned earlier, is because in all the years that I've been doing now grief work with people and helping people heal their heart and find joy in their life and find their light, I call it light after loss, I realized how ill-equipped most people are to support each other through grief. And yet grief is the most common of all human experiences. Not only losing a loved one, but the loss of anything in our lives. And so, the last little thing I just want to share is, people aren't trying to hurt you when they don't say the right thing. We're just not taught this stuff in school, which I'm working on, I'll tell you that. And so when it comes to getting the right support from people who aren't going to be like, well, at least you're so and so is in a better place, or all those things that people say that aren't helpful, that hurt you, and you're not really sure why. I just want you to remember that we're not taught this in school. And they're not saying the things that suck because they're mean, terrible people. They're usually saying them because that's what they've been told, that's what they've heard, that's what society teaches. And so you have to be an advocate for yourself. But in order to be an advocate for yourself, you have to understand why you don't like the things. So I'd really encourage you, if you have a chance, to check out my book, because it's going to give you the subtext of my book. The subtitle is How to Say the Right Thing When the Wrong Thing Happens. And knowing why it hurts you is going to be a helpful way for you to be an advocate for yourself, so that you can stand up for yourself, and also with kindness, with compassion, without alienating people from your life. Because having support, the right support, having connection, having non-judgmental people to listen and love you and accept you where you are, is a huge part of the healing journey. So that's what I would say, is know that people aren't trying to hurt you. They just didn't learn it in school. And you got to stand up for yourself in a kind, caring, compassionate way, which will, I will be sharing a surprise gift with all of you. It'll be in the title, in the notes, but literally it'll be about how to, like, permission to be your own advocate, and some scripts to do so in a way that protects your heart and is also kind and respectful to the people you love. So that's all I got for you. And I hope that's helpful, and just, giving you a ton of love on this journey, because I know it can be lonely and I know it can be painful. And just from the future, just to let you know that if you decide that you want to love and live and have joy and comfort and peace, that you can have that in your life again.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I totally agree. I agree with everything that you just said. Some of the viewers may be in such a crummy spot, terrible, horrible, painful spot right now, but it's not forever. And there's so many types of losses and so many ways of dealing with grief. And just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, although it does not feel like that, possibly for some right now. But I think Laura and I can both say there is light. Just be patient and do what you need to do. And if that means, getting angry and, slamming the door, if that means, crying all night, if that means just you need to work through it, the way you need to work through it. Nobody can tell you how to do it, that's for sure. And just thank you so much for your words of wisdom, Laura. And you're just such a gentle soul. I love you to death. And I know you're a busy gal. So I really am grateful for having you here today and sharing with us. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for having me. And I want to say one last thing, which is just take care of yourself, right? Like, that is the most important thing, is to take care of yourself. Because we can't give to anyone else if we're not taking care of ourselves. So thank you for having me, Andrea. I'm so grateful to be here. And I hope that this summit proves or provides a lot of comfort to a lot of people out there.
Yes, thank you. I do too. And I'm excited because Laura is gracious enough and generous enough to be sharing a couple of gifts. So we'll have the links for those. One you can get now, and one is a surprise. So I'm just going to say thank you to all my viewers who tuned in today. I hope something did touch your soul. I know mine has been touched. It is every time I talk with Laura. And until the next time, I'm just going to repeat, just be safe, be kind to yourself, give yourself the time you need, and just remember that you are not alone. And bye for now. Still recording. Still recording. I think it's still recording. This will be